Awesome. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We will go ahead and get started in just a couple moments.
Good morning, John. Thank you for joining us today.
Hello. Morning.
Alrighty, and just a quick reminder, if you're new to us, any questions for the panelists, please put those in the Q&A. Any questions that you have for me, go ahead and put those in the chat. And I will go ahead and start sharing my screen and we can get started.
Thank you, Bree. Good morning, Maureen. Thank you for joining us.
No problem. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you as well. Hi, David. Good to see you as well. And Carrie, we're going to get started here in just a minute.
Alrighty. I will go ahead and give it to Sanita.
Thank you so much, Bree. Let's give it another minute. Let's see if some more people end up joining us. Not as many have joined us so far, so we'll just give it one more minute and then we'll get started.
Good morning.
Good morning. I hear.
Can you, oh, I have my thing off. Sorry, trying to get myself together here. Okay, now I'm together.
Thanks for joining us today. Good to see you.
Thank you. Yeah, good to see you as well.
Looks like it's creeping up. I'll just go ahead and start doing the introductions. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us here today, session 79 for the disaster relief loan updates for PPP, EIDL, and other loan products that we have. This is brought to you today by the Northern California SBDC. We are supported by the SBA and the state of California, and this is how we're able to provide you free, no-cost advising and webinars such as today. We've been here on Wednesdays for, it's going to be almost a year coming up. So we're just happy to be here to give you the most updated information that we have. I am part of the Finance Center. My name is Sunita Maharaj. I am the director. Here we have Steve Roth, a regional lending specialist, who's also going to be helping us today with the presentation. At the Finance Center, we have also four full-time lending specialists. Steve would be one of them, plus 20 additional experienced advisors that can help with anything finance. So you can contact us as well as your local center. You want to go next, please, Bree? Northern California SBDC, you can get started with the Finance Center right here, financingsimplified.com. We are going to share this deck with you so you can get that information there, and I will also put it in the chat. You can find your local center at the NorCalSBDC.org. We also have SBA here, Carrie Ellenwood and David Castaneda that will be joining us. And also today we have Case Force with us, and we will be getting to them towards the end of the program. So the slide deck will be shared during this webinar in the chat if it hasn't already been shared. Bree's going to do an awesome job of doing that. The other things we're going to share is a folder, a Google folder with the most asked documents, or we're going to share the documents that are within this slide deck as well. The webinar is being recorded and can be available at ASKSBDC.com. It's usually available towards the end of the day or the next day if you'd like to rewatch it. If you have questions, please place them in the Q&A and not in the chat. The chat is where you can place technical issues and we will assist you there. The other is, if you could please wait until we've gone through each section before you ask your questions, because most likely we will answer your questions throughout the presentation. Today we're changing it up a little bit. We're going to go through some most asked questions that we get on a weekly basis, and hopefully that will assist you as well. If you're going to ask a question, can you please put in the front of it, either is it in regards to PPP, EIDL, or is it a question that you would like one of the attorneys to answer if possible? Then can you put that ahead of it so that way we know how to answer the question correctly? Because sometimes PPP and EIDL, it almost sounds like the same question. Usually we are able to figure it out, but that would just be an additional help for us. We'd appreciate that. Wanted to let you know things are changing all the time, not as often as before, but they are still changing. So some of this information is updated and some is not. This information was relevant as of yesterday. Next, please. So the agenda today, we're going to go over the California Relief Grant really briefly. Paycheck protection, of course, the PPP for its second draw and first draw, EIDL, and the targeted EIDL advance. We'll tell you what that means. SBA debt relief, the Shuttered venue operators grant, employee retention tax credit. The SBA team will give us all of their updates and also throughout the webinar too. If they have anything they'd like to add, we would love them to go ahead and please feel free to do so. We're going to go over some upcoming webinars in case the Attorney Coalition is here today as well, and we will speak with them. And we're going to go through Q&A. We do answer questions throughout the webinar, so please also look for that. Next, please.
Very good.
So I'm going to hand it over to Steve this morning. He's going to take over this first section and I will pick it up a little bit later. So thank you so much for being here.
Good. Hi, everybody. So just a couple of what's news. The Shuttered venue operators grant is new and developing. We don't have applications yet. So go to the site www.sam.gov and you can get instructions. Once things are firmed up, we'll have them on our going forward webinars. And then if you are looking for a PPP lender, remember that there are roughly 5,000 around the United States who participate with the SBA, but that's a hot link so you can find your local SBD center. And you can also look for local banks that are part of the PPP2 program. Next one. So just a brief thing about the California Relief Grant. Round 2 closed last week. So whatever happened, it's done. There are no new applications being accepted. The final notifications for grants should go out by tomorrow, but it might be Friday or Monday. Waitlist notices will go out on February 22nd, and then non-selection notices will get sent out between the 24th of February and the end of the month, the 28th or the 1st of March. All communications are going to come through Lendistry, who runs the program, and not through the SBA and not through the SBDC or the Finance Center. So if you haven't heard yet, or if you're on the wait list, you're probably not going to get funded. Next slide. Then we'll talk about PPP2. Next one. Right, so eligibility for PPP2, you can apply for the second draw PPP loan until March 31st of this year, about 5-6 weeks from now. Make sure you include your SBA application number from the first draw on the second draw application. You have to, because they won't accept it if you don't. So you'll be asked for a few numbers when you apply. You'll have to have your EIDL tracking number. You'll have your PPP1 loan number. Fill out the application. The application's really devilishly simple. It's only about a page and a half and a bunch of questions to answer. There's a $2 million maximum loan amount. The company has to have 300 or fewer employees. But the big gating factor is really a 25% reduction in gross receipts for one calendar quarter in 2020 versus 2019. And these are comparable calendar quarters. So it would be January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. If any one quarter was down by 25% or more, then you should qualify for the PPP2 loan. And remember, you only need one out of the 4 quarters, not the whole year, not 2 quarters, and not random months, just 2 comparable calendar quarters. So that's the first test you should look at. Next slide. If you previously received a PPP1 loan, you have to verify that you will or you will have used the full amount of the loan as part of the PPP2 lending process. And it's also obviously only for authorized use of funds. So it's going to be for payroll expenses, rent, interest on loans prior to 2019, and utilities. And you must have been in business as of February 15th, 2020. So the lender will probably ask you for a bank statement that covers the February 15th, 2020 period as part of the documents that you'll upload for the second draw application. And we put a hot link in for the second draw, but you'll find it at every lender for the SBA anywhere you go. So they're easy to get to, and they're all the same. And at this point, all lenders are open for applications. At the beginning of the process, there was a skew towards smaller lenders who would service smaller companies, and that was a very good thing to do. It gave them first access to the capital, but now all lenders should be taking PPP2 applications. And also, nonprofits can apply. You can be a 501c3, which is the most common form of nonprofit. It's what we would commonly refer to as a charitable trust. But 501c19s, which are veterans organizations, 501c6s, which are associations, are also eligible, or an eligible marketing organization. So if you have any questions, contact your local SBDC, contact the Finance Center, but your lender will also know. Next one. So the PPP2 funding process, it's important to sort of look at how this works, right? The borrower applies for the PPP2 loan from their lender or lenders if you go to more than one. The lender then reviews your application. They're responsible for helping you gather all the required documents. They make sure you're eligible. They'll check your arithmetic on your quarterly qualifying calculation. And they ask the underwriting questions, and they really become the face of the program to the borrower. Your primary interface in this process will be with your lender. They should be the ones answering your questions and helping you through the process. The lender then, with all the documents in hand, having reviewed the file, they approve the PPP2 application and they send it to the Small Business Administration for their approval and a guarantee number. If the SBA approves the loan, and they do most of the time, they'll assign a loan guarantee number and send it back to the lender, or they'll deny the loan and send the reason to the lender. The lender will contact you about either case. The lender then informs the borrower of the results. If the results are positive, they'll generate the legal forms. They'll send them to you. It's all an e-sign procedure like DocuSign, but you'll get the forms, you'll sign them online, you send them back, and then the bank or lender will fund the loan. So some people have asked about, going to groups that are not direct lenders, but are portals. And so if you do that, you're simply adding another layer onto the front end of the process. You would fill out an application with a portal like Lendio. Lendio then sends your application to lenders that you don't see. The lenders are still the ones required to do the due diligence to make the loan. So you're really better off, and you'll shorten the process if you go directly to an SBA approved lender who's doing PPP2 loans directly. Next slide. Right. So the process can take 2 to 4 weeks. It's not instantaneous. The bank has to do stuff. You have to do stuff. They send it to the SBA, which has to do stuff. However, the SBA is really doing a fantastic job of turning these things around. And I say that not because I work with or for the SBA, but they're really doing a great job. Most of my clients, and I've had a lot, are getting, the banks are getting these back in 1 to 3 business days. And so most of the delays are probably not a function of the SBA doing its work, but a function of the lender, who is your point of contact with the process. So each lender will be slightly different in how they deal with the PPP2 loan. Some have specialized groups doing it. Some are trying to do it through expert systems. So make sure you provide the lender with all the documents they need to get the process rolling upfront. Answer all the questions. Be careful that you answer the questions correctly. You know, if you've never been convicted of a felony, try not to say you have been convicted of a felony and then figure out why the process blew up in your face, right? So go through this stuff slowly, carefully, make sure it's right the first time. Work with your lender. Next one. So some frequently asked questions, right? Should you apply for PPP-1 forgiveness now? And the answer is yes. All of the rules that changed in December with the second stimulus bill have been worked in. The forms are out. All lenders should be open for forgiveness at this point in time. You're not under any pressure to do so, but might as well get it done. Should you apply for a PPP-2 loan with the same lender you used for the first loan? And the answer is yes. They already have your paperwork. It should be a smoother, faster, simpler process if you're working with the same group you worked with the first time. You know, it may be that they've changed, but I would strongly encourage everyone to apply with their PPP-1 lender for PPP-2. To the best of my knowledge, everyone who did the first round of PPP loans is also open for business doing the second round of PPP loans. Must you apply for a PPP-2 loan with the same lender you used for the first? And the answer is no. You can change lenders and you can apply to multiple ones. Obviously, you can only get one loan. But remember, if you do apply to multiple lenders, it may cause confusion. The SBA process is only a part of this. So the banks process these applications at different speeds. They'll ask different questions. It may be that you'll get a rejection from the second lender when the first lender already has, you know, their SBA guarantee, but they're taking an extra day or two to turn around the documents and let you know, just given their process. They let you know and they send you the legal papers all at the same time. So it's the same process for everybody. It's the same loan for everybody at any lender. So don't apply to 50 of them. You're probably going to get yourself confused and us confused too. So can I get more than one PPP-2 loan? The answer is no. Whether you apply as a sole proprietor or as a corporation, you'll get one loan per social security number or employer identification number. Do you need to apply for PPP-1 forgiveness before applying for PPP-2? Again, the answer is no. If you haven't gotten your forgiveness yet from the first loan, you can still apply for the second loan. On the application, you will be asked a few questions about the first loan, but you don't need to have applied and you don't need to have been forgiven yet. Next one. Good. So, if you didn't get a PPP-1 loan, can you get a PPP-2 loan? Well, effectively, the answer is no, because if you didn't get a PPP-1 loan, just apply for a PPP-1 loan. Remember, if you apply for if you got a first draw loan, you have to prove damage by having had revenue decline in one quarter by 25% or more. If you never applied for a PPP loan, you do not have to go through that gate. So therefore, you're just getting a PPP-1 loan. Very simple. And almost all lenders will ask you if this is the second draw or a first draw on the websites, and you'll be vectored to the right form based on the box you pick. Is the forgiveness different for 1 versus 2? And the answer is no. It'll be the same basic process for both. Should you call the SBA if anything goes wrong? And the answer is no. You should call your lender. We're here to help, but the lender is the face to you, and they're designed to be the ones you work with, and you should work with your lender. How long does it take to get funded? After you've signed the documents, remember, you go through the process, you fill out the form, lender reviews it, checks it, make sure it's correct. Lender sends it to the SBA. SBA does its work, gives the guarantee number, sends it back to the bank. The bank generates the documents. You should be funded in 1 to 3 business days after you sign the documents online. Some people I know have been funded the same day. They sign the documents in the morning and they receive the PPP-2 loan in the afternoon. So it's really going quite well. Can you correct an application after it's submitted? The answer is yes. you have to work through your lender, but only until it's funded. Once a loan has been funded, there's an SBA guarantee number attached to that EIN, that employer identification number, or social security number. So you can only have one loan, one PPP2 loan per entity or per person. So do it right the first time. It will save a great deal of trouble down the road. One PPP loan, one PPP2 loan per employer identification number or social security number. Once the PPP2 loan is funded, it really can't be changed. Now, it may be through some great mechanism you could, but I haven't been able to get anyone's changed. And so if you make a mistake, it can be very costly. I had someone who should have received $97,000, but their accountant made a mistake. They didn't catch it. The loan got funded. You know, took it to folks, tried to help them, but indeed, there's nothing that could be done. They got 45 instead of 97. So be careful. Right? Take a day, make sure the numbers are correct. Once the application goes into the system, it's in the system. Next one. Thanks. If you do have any problems or questions, get help, and get help before you file your application. Right? We're here to help. Your local SBDC is there to help. The lender has teams of people who are there to help. So think it through. The old joke would be, or the old expression is, measure twice, cut once, right? No, make sure you've got the right numbers on the page. Next one. So PPP forgiveness terms. PPP2 is spent on payroll costs and other eligible expenses, just like PPP1. At least 60% of the proceeds must be spent on direct payroll costs. Employees and compensation levels are maintained in the same manner as required for the first draw. So if you're getting a second draw, there's really nothing different that you need to do than you already have done for the first draw. So just follow along with where you were. For loans of under $150,000, there's a new form, the 3508S, which is a simple affidavit-like forgiveness form. It's available through the SBA website. It's available online through Google, and it's also available at every lender. So your lender will have this form. They're done. There are no changes. People have been filing them. A little later, perhaps Heather or someone else can, give the up-to-date numbers about the amount of PPP1 forgiveness that's already been processed, but it's significant and it's growing every day. And the 60-40 split, 60% for people, 40% for the other costs applies for PPP1 as well as PPP2. That's the same. Next one.
Steve, can I just really interject really quickly?
Sure.
Can everybody put their questions in the Q&A and not the chat? And please let us know which program you're speaking of when you ask the question. That would really help us answer the questions correctly. Thank you very much.
Good. And also remember, the slides are all downloadable, so you'll have all the yeses and nos. So now for the second PPP loan, forgiveness terms, the businesses are committing to maintain an average monthly number of full-time equivalents equal to or above the average of their base period during the previous one-year period. So the goal of PPP is really still the same. It's to help maintain employment for businesses, all across the country in all different sectors that have been negatively impacted by COVID and otherwise would find it difficult to maintain employment. The amount that can be forgiven will be reduced if you don't maintain your FTEs. People get very worried about this, but there are things called safe harbor rules. And safe harbor is an old nautical term. If you were a ship at sea and there was a storm brewing, even though you did not have the right to enter a certain port, they would allow you to safe harbor inside the port until the storm was over. You could take on food, you could make repairs, and then you just had to get out of Dodge before a certain time, and you were okay. So safe harbor rules apply. Next one. They're built into the law, and they're designed to help borrowers in circumstances that are really beyond your reasonable control. If you're a restaurant and you were closed and you couldn't hire people back, everyone understands this. There's a safe harbor rule. about having your full-time equivalents reduced by a government order that either prevented you from opening entirely or prevented you from opening at the same capacity. So if you're a restaurant and you had 100 employees and now you can only be open at a 25% capacity, everyone understands you can't have the same number of full-time equivalents. No one's trying to hurt you for this. You're unable to bring employees back on time, but you were able to bring them back by the end of the calendar year 2020. This is another safe harbor rule. You had hourly wage reduction exceptions, and they happen because of bringing people back or not. Employees who refused to return to work at the same salary, you sent them a letter, you asked them to return for the same number of hours at basically the same job and the same rate, but they didn't want to return, they couldn't return, etc. There's also a safe harbor provision for those. So there are 4 safe harbor provisions, all of which can work to increase forgiveness. We're here to help you with that. Your lender will help you with that. The accounting profession is now aware of them. So, so the forms are all available online. If you think one of the safe harbor rules covers you, get help. We'll help you figure it out. But the point is, everyone understands this is called a disaster because it's a disaster. So the rules are in place to help. Next one. So if you want to calculate your own loan, right? Borrowers can calculate their aggregate payroll costs by using data from the prior 12 months or from calendar year 2019. So if you qualify for PPP2 and you qualify because your revenues were down by 25% in any one quarter, the chances are pretty good you didn't have the same number of people working for you if you really got help. So you can use either the prior 12 months or 2019. There's a new provision in the law for seasonal businesses that allow you to take your peaks and average them out in order to increase the amount of PPP support you get. And an applicant that was not in business in February of 2019, can use the average payroll costs for January 2020 through February 29, 2020. So basically the original PPP1 loan would have used 2019 as the base. If you opened after the first period, but you qualify for the second, the base simply moves to the beginning of the year. And there's a hot link so you can help calculate the amount of your first round and also the revenue reductions and the second rounds. But it's actually less complicated than this makes it out to be. Next one. If you're a sole proprietor or contractor, you're also covered. So you are a sole proprietor contractor if you're not a corporation, right? If you're a sub S or an LLC or a C Corp, and that's how you file your taxes, then by definition, you're not self-employed. You are self-employed if you get 1099s and you put those 1099s into a Schedule C to calculate your personal services profit or loss. Line 31 on the Schedule C is effectively your payroll. Line 31 is your net profit from your sole proprietor activities. So if line 31 is 0 or negative, then in effect you had no payroll. There was no economic benefit left over for the owner, and therefore there's no PPP2 loan. Same applied for PPP1. If line 31 is positive, then you divide it by 12 to get your average monthly payroll, multiply it by 2.5. And that's your PPP2 loan. So if you didn't get a PPP1, then you use your pro forma from calendar 2020 Schedule C. If your PPP2 eligibility is a function of revenues being down from 2020 from 19, you'll probably go back and use your 2019 Schedule C. The law allows you to use whichever is more favorable to you and will generate a higher PPP2 loan amount. Remember, the maximum sole proprietor loan amount is basically $20,833, which is the $100,000 of sole proprietor profit cap divided by 12 multiplied by 2.5. So if you are a sole proprietor, you can get up to 20,833. If you're a corporation, then it'll be higher because you've got a payroll cost. Next one. So some limitations, right? Remember, the maximum second PPP2 loan is the lesser of 2.5 times the average monthly payroll cost, healthcare costs the prior year, right? So if you're not a code 72 company, you have a 2.5 multiple on your average monthly payroll. Code 72 for the industry codes are basically hotels, casinos, restaurants, and there, because they've been hit harder than most businesses, you can use a 3.5 times multiple. And this is built into the calculator that's part of the PPP2 application. Maximum loan amount is $2 million for PPP2. It was higher for PPP1. Next one. So for the payroll protection program, right? Remember, payroll costs 60% minimum to qualify for forgiveness and without losing anything. Payment of interest, not principal, on mortgage obligations, rent, utilities, and some additional uses, which are covered on the next page. Eligible costs for payroll are wages, salaries, commissions, vacation, parental leave, family leave, all the normal things that go into having an employee and paying normal benefits would be part of payroll costs. Next one. You also have some covered operation expenses. You can pay for software, cloud computing, property damages of certain kinds, some supplier costs, and covered worker protection expenditures. If you had to buy PPE equipment, you're running a medical practice, you're seeing people, and everyone needs to be covered from head to foot in plastic. Those costs can be allowed in as well. Most of the costs, though, are going to be people driven. You do have 24 weeks to use the funds. Next one. Great. So some additional updates. Remember the idle advance, which was something that happened a year ago when you applied for an idle loan. The idle advance will not be reduced from the forgivable PPP amount. So your idle advance is really a grant. It doesn't go into the calculation of forgiveness for PPP1. If you already filed, if you filed your PPP1 forgiveness early and you did, and they did deduct it, the SBA is going to deal with that on the back end. The SBA is taking a look at all the early filers for PPP1 loan forgiveness. And if you did lose money, they're going to basically make it good so you don't have to do anything. The covered period will be between 8 and 24 weeks. Pretty much everyone would want to use the 24-week period. Group insurance, vision, dental, or eligible expenses, and borrowers who returned all or part of their PPP loan may be able to apply for a second round of the first draw, but I haven't seen anyone actually do that. Next one. Under the law passed in December, it made it very clear expenses with forgiven PPP loans, are deductible from taxes. So the PPP loan is not income if it's forgiven, and the expenses that went into the PPP forgiveness formula can still be used on your business tax deductions. And gross income does not include forgiveness. It doesn't include the idle grant, et cetera. It doesn't include the shuttered grants, but that won't happen until this year. Next one. Keep your documents. Keep them for 4 years. Just want to keep track of what you did, like any other program. Somebody may ask you about them. Your lender may do a random check. So just keep your receipts like you would for any government program. Any tax program, it's just good practice. Next one. So remember PPP versus idle. PPP is forgivable, as we've talked about. It has a 1% interest rate, 2 to 5 year term. Pretty much it's all 5 years now. Use of funds is on payroll primarily, but also other expenses that you logically need to keep the business open and operating. You apply through the SBA approved lenders. It's not a collateral driven program. EIDL, the economic injury disaster loan, which Sunita will cover in a minute, is not forgivable. It's a straight loan. There's a 3.5% interest rate if you're a for-profit company, and a 2.5% interest rate for a nonprofit company. It's a 30-year term. It's a great program. You apply directly to the SBA on the sba.gov website. If you haven't applied for an EIDL loan, you should do so. It's a fantastic program, and there's nothing else like it. 30-year fixed rate loans at 3.5% or 3.75%, pretty good. Next one. So just a couple of things to remember. Don't get too lost in or about the payroll protection program, right? You know, it was designed to help thousands of companies, sole proprietors, contractors across the United States make it through a very complicated, difficult period. And it's already stretched out now for going on 12 calendar months. So programs fantastic. Most businesses have benefited from it, as have individuals of all kinds. So the PPP program makes the most sense when you think of it as a program designed to help maintain employment, right? You know, if you get too lost in the details of my mother's brother's cousin's nephew, you lose the focus of how simple it really is. Relatively few things involved. The goal is to maintain programs. Keep your documents. PPP1 forgiveness is open, working well. Apply if you haven't. And your lender is going to be your point of contact for your PPP2 loans and your forgiveness for PPP1. Next thing. Right, remember, most PPP borrowers will receive significant amount of loan forgiveness. You have for 1 and 2, you have a 24-week use of funds period. So even if you were impacted by COVID when we had our shelter in place in March of 2020, you still had 6 months from the time you were funded before, you know, to get reopened and use the funds. Sole proprietors, contractors, self-employed people, given that they, by definition, have 1 employee. So if you didn't fire yourself, you ought to get 100% forgiveness as a sole proprietor. The EIDL advance has become a grant. It is not deducted from forgiveness. And the downside is not disastrous. If you're not 100% forgiven for your PPP loan, it'll become a 5-year term loan at 1%. You can't find 1% money anyplace. So it's not a bad deal. You'll get to repay it as we come out of this, and you'll be fine. And PPP loans are not personally guaranteed so long as you use the funds for the intended purposes, which is, again, a special part of the PPP program. Next one, I think we go over to Sunita. With that, I thank you very much, and I'll pass it back to Sunita.
Thank you so much, Steve. I appreciate that. So today we're going to go over the additional CARES Act programs. Thank you so much, Bree. The EIDL, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, the EIDL Appeal Program, Targeted EIDL Advance, and then SBA Debt Relief, and the SVO, and also the Employee Retention Tax Credits. So the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, also known as the EIDL program, reopened in January. So you can start to apply for that program again. New funding as part of a second stimulus bill. Only 1 EIDL is allowed per EIN or Social Security number. Now, if you happen to have, you owned 5 different restaurants, they each had their own EIN number, each restaurant can apply for an EIDL loan. You just can't get more than 1 EIDL loan. And during the other process, I'll let you know if you can apply for additional funds. The EIDL application is right here. It's also located at sba.gov. So that way it is an online process. It is very easy. It's only about 5 pages. And the funding on new deals is quicker now that there's not as many people applying. So the application has been extended until the 31st. The idle appeal process, you have up to 6 months to get reconsidered if you were declined or if you need an increase. If you need an increase to your loan, you can get that through reconsideration, and that is at pdcrecons@sba.gov. I would ask you to reach out to us so that way we can assist you with that process, because there are certain documents that they are going to request, and it would be great if you had it to begin with, so that way it does not slow down the process. There is a certain form 4506T that you need to sign and a couple of other documents. The thing is that they are not accepting the current form. So that's what happens to be, I think, missed most of all, is people are using the current form, but we have to use the form from June 16th, from June of 2019. So go ahead and reach out to us and we'll walk you through that. The other thing is go through the separate dedicated appeal process. So that's what you'll have to do. You can't get a second idle, but you can possibly get an increase on your idle. If you haven't, or if you've been denied, pdcrecons@sba.gov. A second application, if you were to go through the portal, will be flagged, and it'll just slow down the process. So please don't apply for another idle if you already have that in process. It's not going to speed it up, it's just going to slow it down. The appeal process is working. Sometimes it is taking some time, sometimes it's not taking that long. It just really depends on your situation and what are the documents that they're looking for. Like I said about the 4506T form, which reviews your transcripts of your taxes, some people were using the incorrect form. The other thing is that people are also using their phones to upload documents or to take photos of documents, and they cannot accept photos of your documents. They need it to be scanned to be able to process it, especially the 4506T. And the SBA's team will let you know which documents you need, but we will also let you know that because we already know which ones they're looking for. There may be additional ones, but at least we'll give you a list of what you'll need to get started, so that way you're ahead of the game and not waiting for an email back. So with the targeted idle advance, Congress has allocated over $20 billion for this targeted idle advance. SBA will reach out to those that are within the parameters. You do not need to reach out to SBA. SBA will come to you. I believe that somebody within the chat or the Q&A has already stated that they have been reached out to, or their client has. So let's see here. We'll balance out what this advance is, the targeted advance out. It will balance out a previous idle advance to the full $10,000 if the business is in a low income community, suffered greater than 30% economic loss, and has fewer than 300 employees. Those who applied for an idle advance but didn't receive funds due to lack of funding will receive a full $10,000 if they meet the same requirements above and are per targeted idle advance funding availability. So it really just depends on the availability at this point as well. And then the targeted. So you have to provide these documents, and we'll go over it on the next slide. So SBA will reach out to you. Items needed to verify eligibility. You are going to need your 2019 federal tax return. Recommended to have it on hand, and you would need to have it scanned. So please use scanned versions of this and not photos from your phone. You'll need your EIN and Social Security numbers as specified in original idle application, monthly gross receipts for 2019 and 2020, and completed months in 2021. Confirm information in the original idle application is still accurate. Changes may require a manual review and documentation. And I believe somebody was stating that the bank statement and also the information that's on their application is different. So then they will need to be manually reviewed and be updated. Applicants that pass the initial eligibility requirements will be required to sign a 4506T for the SBA to be able to get their transcripts before the agency can approve the targeted idle advance. So they just want to make sure whatever the information is on your tax returns is the exact same as what you have filed with the IRS. Next, please. So SBA debt relief. Second round loan payments, all borrowers will qualifying loans approved by the SBA prior to the CARES Act, loans approved prior to September 28, 2020, will receive an additional 3 months of payments and principal. So your P&I starting in February. So starting this month, you will receive another 3 months of P&I payments that they will pay for you. Underserved borrowers, namely the smallest and hardest hit, will receive an additional 5 months, so a total of 8 months. SBA payments of the P&I on the first 6 months of newly approved loans will resume for all loans approved between February 1st and September 30th of 2021. Also, this is capped at $9,000 a month. So if your payment happens to be over $9,000 a month, you will still owe the remainder of that. So please make sure if anything over $9,000 a month, you are still paying on that loan so that does not become delinquent. Combination of the loan payments deferrals from the lender and payments to the lender by SBA. So, and then if you need more information in regards to this, please contact your lender for more details. Thank you. So loan enhancement. So SBA will waive the 7A and 504 loan programs. Waive the fees for these two programs to the borrower and to the lender. Some bank fees may still apply. The bank can still charge you a processing fee to process your loan. So SBA is not going to charge you a fee, but the bank is most likely still going to do that because they do incur a cost to process your loans. Loan guarantee for the bank increases to 90% from 75%, and SBA Express loans increase from $350,000 to $1 million. The Express 504, a program for real estate loans under $500,000, and micro loan programs expanded to provide financial and technical assistance to businesses impacted by COVID-19. Shuttered venue, it is still not open as of today. I believe they're working on that, and I will let SBA provide any updates if they know if it's coming in the next few weeks or not. I am not sure, and they may not be sure either. What we do know is that you have to be signed up with the sam.gov, and the instructions are here. Also in the Google folder, you will find the instructions there on how to apply for that. You will need that certificate before you can apply for the SVO. So if you think that you're going to apply for the SVO, please go to sam.gov and apply there for the certificate. Another thing is, if you are going to wait for the SVO, then you cannot get a PPP2. So you can't get the second round and you can't have the SVO. You can have one or the other. So the process priority will be as follows. This is some of the information that we've had so far. The most updated information also will be on sba.gov. The first 14 days of the program, grants will be awarded to venues with a minimum of 90% revenue loss. The second would be grants awarded to venues with a minimum of 70% venue loss. And then after 28 days, grants will be awarded to venues with less than 70% venue losses. Initial grant can be up to $10 million with a supplemental at 50% of the grant. $2 billion set aside for entities with up to 50 full-time employees. The shuttered venue entities can receive this grant, but if they do, they are not eligible for a new PPP loan. So the SVO, this grant is going to be administered by the SBA Disaster Office. So it's the same office that is handling the idle loans. The grant amount as general will be 45% of gross earned revenue if operation on January 1st, 2019. If the venue was in operation after the 1st of 2019, January 2019, then you will calculate the average monthly gross revenue for each full month in operation during 2019. and multiply that by 6. Applicants must have been in operation on February 29th, 2020, and must not have received a PPP loan on or after December 27th, 2020. You can apply if you received an EIDL loan and or a PPP loan in 2020. The SVOG can be used for specific expenses such as payroll, rent, utilities, and some other costs to be determined. So this is still being worked out. Additional information, like I stated, will come in the next few weeks and will be updated on the SBA website, and we will also provide you that information. Next, please. Thank you. So here are some of the operators that can apply for the SVO. I don't know if this is going to be increased. This is what we have as of right now. This is what is on SBA's website. And for additional information, you can email the SVO grant at sba.gov, but I don't know if they'll have any more information than what is actually displayed on their website. And this is the most current information. Next, please. So the employee retention tax credit, I know somebody had a question in regards to that as well. And we had another attorney here a couple weeks ago that answered that. But I guess there is different information coming out. So this is a good option for those who cannot apply for a new PPP. Those who receive a PPP can qualify for this as well for wages that are not forgiven with the PPP proceeds. Additional eligibility for full or partial reduction in business activity that may have resulted from the government orders. The ERTC credit is a reduction in the amount due on the 941 and the 940 reports of up to 70% of qualified wages. So it requires a year-over-year gross revenue decline of 20% or more, establishes a credit limit of $10,000 per employee per quarter, allows businesses with 500 or fewer employees to advance the credit wages based on wages paid in the same quarter in previous years.
Sunita, can I interrupt you for a second? So I think
Absolutely.
this is a little bit misleading, so I just want to make sure it's clear.
Absolutely.
So the credit itself is up to 70% of qualified wages and up to $10,000 of qualified wages per quarter. So it's actually up to $7,000 per quarter, not $10,000 per quarter. So
Okay.
if an employer pays $10,000 in qualified wages, the credit would be 70% of that, which is $7,000.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. We will correct that. Thank you so much, Maureen. I appreciate your update on that. And additional information and rules on ERTC are available and more will be coming. So SBA support, we have today here, I believe Heather Lutzi is here, the district director, Carrie Allenwood, the deputy district director, and David Castaneda. And I will let you guys take it from here with any updates that you have. So thank you for being here today.
Carrie, you have to unmute yourself.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right.
Carrie, sorry, it muted again. I don't know, it toggled back. Sorry, Carrie, we're not able to hear you.
It muted again, Carrie.
So sorry, we're not able to hear you, Carrie, at all now. David, do you want to go ahead and provide your updates and hopefully we can figure out?
Yeah, we'll hopefully Carrie can get her microphone up and running. Again, my name is David Castaneda with the Small Business Administration right here in the Sacramento District Office. And I just do have a couple of updates here. And again, like the good folks from the Small Business Development Center that is putting this really good webinar on with their expertise. We do have our other resource partners that I just want to make you aware of. And for example, the score.org website, which is part of our SCORE mentors nationwide. On March 11th, they're having a webinar, Ask the CPA. It's tax advice for your small business. Okay, so right now, a lot of us have a lot of good questions for taxes coming up. So that will be on March 11th, and I'll put this in the chat, the link to that. So SCORE, again, is one of the resource partners that we work with nationwide. Also, one of our other programs that we have is through our Women's Business Center. And here it is right here. Our local Women's Business Center right here in Sacramento area is having a really good 3-part series that will cover insurance and financial education. So it talks about financial risk and exposure, personal and professionally. It also covers solutions to prevent financial catastrophe in personal life and also business. It's a 3-part series. It starts February 25th. And again, that is through our local Women's Business Center. Much like the SBDC, that is another program under the SBA nationwide. One other thing I'll mention here, and this is another good reason to connect with our resource partners, their e-newsletters, because a lot of times they get this information out to you. And normally we don't talk about or push information on grants, but when it does come from reputable sources, we do try to make that information available to as many small businesses as possible. And currently there is a through FedEx, another grant and also a competition type program that they have for 50,000. And again, I'll put the link there so you can take a look at it and read it. Again, we do this with reputable companies that we can see, but again, do your due diligence, look through it and, see if it makes sense for you. So I'll go ahead and put all this information on the link, and hopefully, let's see if Carrie is available to get back on. Are you able to?
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. All right, little technical difficulty. My computer decided to not allow my microphone to work. So there you go. What I was trying to say to you earlier is before I get started, I wanted to share with you all that the Black History Month, we are having a special presentation tonight with some of our group of our district directors in the Black Chamber that are working together. And that I'm going to send the link to that event tonight. It's open to everyone to join. They're going to be talking about recovery with the economic injury disaster loan. There'll be experts there to answer questions, and also information on the Shuttered Venues Grant and our debt relief program. So I will put that in the chat here in a few minutes, and I'm going to get going with the rest of my update for you so that we can all be on the same page here. Today, we learned that all 50 states have had access to the Paycheck Protection Program this round, and California has received 12% of the total lending against the proportion of total U.S. businesses with 500 employees or less. So there have been over 1 million of the PP1 or PP2 loans during this round made for over $100 billion. So the program is working for our small businesses. I encourage you to reach out to your lenders and get that information and get yourself set up with either the Paycheck Protection 2 or 1, whichever you would be meeting at this point. And if you meet those qualifications that Steve mentioned earlier on the Paycheck Protection 2, to let you know a little more detail on that, I am going to share a set of slides with Sunita to share with you. Has a lot of data and details about where we are with this program, but those low to moderate income LMI neighborhoods have had 339,000 loans made for a total of $28 billion. And the average loan size is $84,000, and I'm rounding these numbers off, which is 24% of the total dollars approved in the program. So it's that part of the program. We're very proud of how that has worked out, how our lenders have supported those smallest businesses in our economically challenged communities. In a rural community, there have been 416,000 loans made for over $20 billion. Their average loan size is $48,000, and this represents over 17% of the loans made. So you can see a good portion of our loans are going to rural and economically challenged communities. These are not by census tract. This is the definition that the IRS uses. So it is different. So you'll want to look at their definition for that at the IRS website. On the forgiveness side from the last round of the Paycheck Protection Program, 31% roughly of the loans have been completely processed, and that has given 27% of the total PPP volume forgiveness. So these are some good numbers across all the loan sizes of the PPP program. 99% of those loan values have been forgiven. So you borrowers are getting your documentation down well, your lenders are going through it during that 60-day period, SBA is going through it during the 90-day period, and so far $142.6 billion have been forgiven on those loans for small businesses. So kudos to our lending partners for working really hard to get that done. I know our systems have been a little bit slow in some cases on these forgiveness applications, so please do be patient and know that we're working through those as quickly as we can. We spoke earlier about the targeted EIDL advance, and I just would like to let you know that you must use the same EIN or Social Security number you used when you got your first EIDL advance. And you also need to make sure that your information matches with the first. So I know there was a question in the chat about, well, I get things mailed here, but I put this on my application, I got the advance. You need to use the address on that original application. And I would also provide a letter of explanation in that as to why those addresses are different. And secondly, you need to be aware that there's no second chance on the EIDL advance. So there's no PDC recons on the EIDL advance. So before you submit that, it would be very good for you to maybe work with the SBDC Finance Center or someone to make sure you get that accurate information in the first time, because this is kind of your one pull on that brass ring to get the rest of that advance. So you must have the correct information in there. Those will take a little bit of time to process. As Sunita mentioned, they're going to be looking for some other documentation that was not previously required. The other thing we talked about a little bit today is the Shuttered Venue Grant, and we do not have that application online yet. We're very close to getting it there for you. So the best place for you to look for information on that is at the sba.gov/SBO grant. That link will take you directly to that information. And that program, again, will be organized through SBA directly. And you will want to go to our website for that application. When it's up, please check back there to find out any other current information. That's where everything's going to be posted most currently. Also, this slide set I'm going to share has the very detailed information on the loans and how they've recorded and reported. And Sunita is requiring and letting you know that we require scanned documents for applications. They're best to be provided to us that way. We look at the PDF is what we're looking for. And that's a program you can download for free off the internet and use that to scan your documents. And that's all I have for today. And David's already said his story, so I'm not sure if Heather's still on. But I'm done, ready for questions.
Thank you so much, Carrie. I don't think Heather is here anymore. So we are going to go ahead and move it on to case. So let me read the disclaimer really quickly. I know we've already had questions. These office hours are intended to be a resource for the small businesses with fewer than 25 employees and nonprofits to learn information about various resources and legal issues relevant to the COVID-19 pandemic. They are not intended to offer legal advice, and the leaders of the office hours are not able to represent office hour participants as their attorneys. This session is intended to address issues related to the pandemic, and panelists aren't able to comment on general non-pandemic related issues. Next, please. Today, these are our attorneys here today to help us. I think that they may have some updates. Maureen Lynch is here, Elise Hicks, and John Horton. I'm not sure, Maureen, if you wanted to, or if you had any updates as of now or best practices.
Sure. So I think you covered generally the employee retention tax credit, which is the main benefit that's currently available in the first and second quarters of 2021. But just to sort of round out that discussion a little bit, I would just point out that the employee retention tax credit is available just for the first 2 quarters. So it's just wages paid through June of 2021. And again, that's up to 70% of $10,000 per quarter. So a total of $14,000 available in 2021 for that credit. And it's available to businesses who are either under at least a partial shutdown because of a governmental order related to COVID, or who are experiencing a qualifying decline in gross receipts as compared to the same quarter in 2019. So that is a decline of at least 20%. So if your first quarter gross receipts are 80% or less of your first quarter gross receipts for 2019, you would be eligible for the credit, at least if you've paid at least $10,000 per employee in wages, in qualifying wages. And then the other sort of change that was made over the CARES Act at the end of 2020 that's in place now is that for businesses that have 500 or fewer employees, any wages paid during a time in which the business is experiencing that decline in gross receipts or experiencing a governmental shutdown could potentially be qualifying wages. For larger businesses, there are slightly different rules, but I don't think anybody in this audience would be interested in hearing those. So that's all I would say about that.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Maureen. I'm not sure if anybody else has other updates, or we can slide straight into the Q&A. Okay.
I do have a few best practices, no updates regarding SBA, but it does help to know how to read your policy. If you have business interruption insurance, this does go for especially COVID. We are seeing a lot of businesses who are not getting the payout they deserve from their insurers because they have virus exclusions in their policies. So the first best practice I would suggest is get a complete copy of your policy. The declarations page is just the front part. It shows you what your coverages are and how much you're paying for those coverages. But the meat and potatoes is in the complete package of your policy. Your policy can range from about 20 to 50 pages. So ask your insurer for a complete copy of your policy, and they should provide that to you within 24 hours. Another thing is to look for a virus exclusion in your policy. This allows insurance companies to withhold that money, especially for COVID-19. If you do have a virus exclusion, you can always email info@uphelp.org and ask us any questions that you have regarding your policy. And that is it for me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Elise. Appreciate that. It looks like Steve is doing another great job of answering all the questions. We've answered 59 questions so far. There is an I don't know, it looks like
It's
Steve
about
is
the
answering
employee retention tax
right,
credit.
it's about the ERTC. Do I understand
Yeah.
correctly that business is only eligible if it did not receive a PPP?
So that's actually no longer the rule. That was one of the, there was a bill that was passed at the end of December, and the rule changed. The rule now is that if you receive a PPP, you can't use the same wages that qualified you for the PPP to get the tax credit. But if you paid different qualifying wages, so for example, if you got the PPP for 2020 and then you paid additional qualifying wages in 2021, you could take the tax credit for those 2021 wages. So there was a rule like what this questioner was describing before the law was changed, but it was changed at the end of last year.
Right. Perfect. Yeah, I know. And it's hard to, catch up with all the changes. So thank you very much for that.
Yeah, it's
So,
an evolving situation.
Definitely so. So Joe is asking for case force questions. Can you give a quick overview on what the rules are on government assistance on lease payments and for small businesses? Joe, I'm not sure if that we have that specialty here today. I know that sometimes we have some attorneys that have these specialties in regards to lease payments. And I believe that was Heidi last week or the week before that was here. So I apologize. I'm not sure if we have the answer for that. If Bree, can you get this question down and hopefully we can send it to case force and possibly get that answered? Or I will get the question. Let's see here. Let's see here. You're welcome, Joe. Steve is answering Cindy's question. Thanks for the ERTC clarification. Can you include that info on slides next time or in this webinar somehow? Sure, we can include that. Okay, so that's for Joe. Are there any other questions before we leave today?
Well, I'm sorry I didn't get to help, but my esteemed colleague panelists are well informed, and this has been helpful for me even. But if there's any questions about general business counseling, corporate law, a lot of those issues have come up in my practice. So
Perfect. Thank you so much, John. Somebody's asking if there's any way to speak to someone at Blue Vine. We do not have their contact information, so unfortunately we don't have that. I know that Angie, you were stating that you aren't able to get a hold of them. If it's, you could ask them to cancel your loan and then go to another provider or do that at the same time. I'm sorry that we're not able to contact them over at Blue Vine. Can I apply now for PPP 1 and PPP 2? No, you can only apply for one first, and then you should have that money spent down or almost spent down before you can apply for the second round. And you have between 8 and 24 weeks to spend that money. So you can't get it today and say I spent it tomorrow and then apply for the second round. Also, you cannot apply for the same parameters for the first round as the second round. I know that Brian had asked earlier today if someone in the would be considered under the 72 code for the Nexus code, can they apply at the 3.5% for the first round of PPP? And no, you cannot. It's only for the second round. So if that, I know it's confusing. It's a lot of information, but the first round parameters still stand at the 2.5% or 2.5% or 2.5, and then the 72 code for PPP second draw is at 3.5, 3.5.
And Sunita, this is Carrie. I'd just like to point out and add in that the deadline on that is March 31st. So if they're looking to apply for their PPP 1, they're very quickly approaching an 8-week time frame. So if they're going to want to do both, because they have that reduction for the PPP 2, they want to get on the first PPP 1 fairly quickly. Otherwise, they're going to be really pushed on the using it within 8 weeks, so they won't have enough time.
Right. And so we had a question also, Carrie, in regards to the hold codes. Should the lenders have all the information that they need to be able to overcome those hold codes at this time?
That's a very good question, Sunita. And so here's what has happened. There have been they're using a different platform on that. And so what's happening is there's some hold codes that can be cleared by the lender. We just had a call with them late last week or I think it was late last week, where they were given the instructions and the codes that they're able to clear. There are some hold codes that SBA must clear and the lender cannot clear them. I don't have the entire list here in front of me. So if your lender is saying there's a hold code on your application, I can't clear it, SBA needs to clear it, that lender is then going to be working with our servicing department to clear that hold code. So as you can imagine, with all of the original PPP loan applications and now people coming for PPP2 and may or may not be with the same lender, a lot of moving parts. I know our lenders are working really hard to get these applications completed for you. They're working weekends, and just be patient with them and trust that they are telling you the truth if they say, I cannot clear this hold code.
Thank you very much,
Thanks.
Carrie.
You're welcome.
I know some of the applications are going through without a hitch and some are not. There's some information that's probably just not matching up. Like Carrie said, there are a few hold codes. I don't have all the codes right now, but your lender, you should be in contact with you to give you that information on what's going on with your the loan process of the PPP. So there are no more new questions at this time. I thank everybody for their time for being here today, the Case Force group, and also wanted to tell you about upcoming Finance Center webinars. So we will have another one next week on the 24th. Case will not be with us next week, but they will join us again on the 10th and the 24th of next month. We will not be having a weekly webinar on Wednesdays, and the reason is because things are not changing as much as they used to. This information has been pretty stagnant since we started the webinars up again on a weekly basis. If anything does change though, we will send it out in a newsletter, and then we will have a Wednesday webinar, and we'll let everybody know. So if anything else changes, we'll definitely have a Wednesday webinar, and we will put it forth and let everybody know that. But for next month, it will be the 10th and the 24th. We also have additional regional webinars that are coming up. Tomorrow, Kyle Roseman is with our Finance Center. He is putting on a Financing Your Business. There's also our restaurant group, great group. If you are thinking about, if you're thinking about opening up a restaurant, if you have a restaurant, if you want to be able to pivot with your restaurant, please join these webinars. It is great free information that you should have. If you have a friend or a family member that is thinking about this, please join these. Such great information. So for cottage food webinar, checklist to opening a restaurant and starting your business for 2 days. So please join us with these. We thank you so much. And the next slide is going to give you our information if you need to get a hold of us. At this time, loans@asksbdc.com will be the best way for you to reach us. And the reason is because with the grant, we are getting hundreds of calls every single day. We're unable to answer those calls because there's so many. And we're directing everybody to loans@asksbdc.com. And that is the fastest way for us to be able to get to you on a daily basis. So again, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it. Thank you to Case Force for being here, SBA, and to Steve and Brianna for helping with this webinar today. Everyone have a great day. Take care. We'll see you next week.